One.
Hi, Jack. I'm super excited to have you here today because my dad and I have been fans of your shows and we've watched some of your stuff. And I know you've been on Who's the Boss, which I'm super happy. I'm really excited to have you
Thank you.
for my interview today.
I am. It's my pleasure to be here. I promise you, it's my pleasure to be here.
You're like the biggest celebrity in San Diego right now. So.
Well, don't let Randy Davison know that he's not going to be happy.
No,
But I mean,
I
yeah,
love Brandon too.
yeah, Randy is
Yeah,
fantastic, and Connie is. I mean, there's some people at the top of the list in San Diego,
Yeah.
and there's a studio opening up in South Bay. It's gonna all of a sudden it's gonna be like Stu Siegel was in the '90s with all the work they had going on. So yeah, pretty cool. So what's on your mind?
Well, I'm just wanting to know. I want to do a blog about disabilities and getting involved in modeling. I've done modeling. I was a Miss California wheelchair. I met President Ford. Met a lot of celebrities when I was the Easter Seal girl, and I have done modeling for UCLA and some of the. I've done modeling for UCLA and a lot of charity events, and I was wondering how you feel about disabled modeling, and I've also done some brand ambassador work for Push and Dakota as well.
I've seen your pictures. Very attractive pictures.
Thank you.
Yes.
They were some in those books that Billy brought down, the Nouveau book.
Right.
But I need to get a new
You're
book.
going after some other pictures, and you're like,
Yeah.
Billy, where's the rest of those pictures?
I need to get a new portfolio because Nouveau's not even around anymore.
Right.
So I have to get something that says Hollywood Talent Associates for Candy, right?
Right. And we have both met Tony Danza. I worked with Tony
Yeah.
Danza, and he did a charity event or something that you met Tony Danza.
And Connie Stevens too.
I love Connie Stevens.
Yeah.
But you met Tony like around the same time I worked with him.
Yeah, like I was like 10 or 12.
So what year would that have been? What year would 10 or 12?
What year was I'm like 53 now, so.
Oh, I'm gonna do that. Oh, you just gave up. Everybody knows her age now.
No.
Would that have been the early '90s?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, because that's when I worked on the very final season of Who's the Boss with Tony Danza.
Yeah.
And so yeah, Tony, and he's wonderful. He is so wonderful. You want to hear a great Tony Danza story?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm up at the studio at Sunset Gower where they used to shoot Who's the Boss. And back in the early '90s, when you wanted to make a phone call, it was still like a big deal if you made a long distance call. If you made a long distance call, it was pricey. So nobody made a long distance call. Like if you called your family, you'd be like, hey, Uncle Harry, put everybody on the phone real quick. We got 2 minutes here, everybody, because you got charged so much. But at the studio, I found out that there was a phone on the wall by the stage doors, and you just pick the phone up and you can call anywhere in the country. Long distance calls were like free. So I was like, okay, here we go. I called my family in New York and I said, I'm on the set of Who's the Boss? And I'm gonna be working with Tony Danza. I had a very small part, but it was the final season premiere. And my grandmother says, Tony Danza, I know him. He knows me from back in the neighborhood. And I said, you're kidding. You've never mentioned you know Tony Danza. And she goes, oh yeah, you tell him. You tell him Lena from Broome Street says hello. So I hang up the phone, I turn around, and there is Tony Danza talking to Tony Singletary, the director. And I said, excuse me, I said, I just got off the phone with my grandmother. And she says she knows you from the old neighborhood on Broome Street. And she said to say hi, she said to say Lena says hello. And Tony goes like this. Lena, I know Broome Street. All right, I'll tell you what. I said, well, he turns around to the director. Tony is such a sweetheart. He says, what we'll do is the scene with the swan, because it was in a season premiere, aired. I flew to New York. book to watch it with my family.
Mhm.
So we sat in a huge room, kind of like this big room. Everybody sat facing the TV, and I sat next to my grandmother, and then the show started, and Tony Danza comes on set, and I said, there he is, and wait till you see my scene. And my grandmother goes, oh wait, that's not the guy I know. The other guy, what's his name? I think his name's Columbo, he's a singer. That's I don't know him. I was like, you don't know him? I said, I walked right in, I interrupted a conversation. She goes, oh, I forgot. And Tony was so nice, I'm sure he had no idea who my grandmother was, and he still gave me a better part on the show. It was a nice featured spot on the final season premiere of Who's the Boss.
That's so cool. You know, when I was younger, like 8 years old, I was kind of scared to meet celebrities, you know, because I didn't, like, they were, like, untouchable, like, you would just look at them in awe, like, oh my gosh, there's so-and-so or whatever. So when my mom says, go up, don't be scared, talk to Tony, and he's like, I'm like, what if I get on the TV or something? He's like, don't be scared, you can't be countershot. And Tony's like, I love kids. So then he's like, I think I was like 10 or something, and he like came and signed an autograph for me, and because they were at a children's event, and he was just so polite.
It's so nice.
And Linda Evans took me around with Valerie Perrine, the lady from Superman,
Yes.
and took me around, and we got to see all the tennis events. Got to go.
Miss Tessmacher from Superman.
Yeah. And we got to see all the tennis and all the events. Just going to all the private rooms and stuff.
Yeah. And Linda Evans is another one of those people that has that reputation of always being so nice to everybody. And Tony is like that too.
And elegant.
Yes, and just that whole smoothness.
And you of course, you're very polite. I've worked with you on the set of a few things. You're very polite. You brought pasta to everyone.
That was my wife Karen, who made the pasta for everybody. And poor Jaren hired a caterer that day, and everybody ate her ziti and everything. Everybody got filled up on my wife's food, and then nobody went out and ate with the caterer.
Well, she's like an amazing cook.
She's an incredible cook.
You have to tell
It's
her.
the best chicken cutlets I've ever had in my life. But she cooked up a vegetarian, a meat, and then just the regular ziti, and it was all gone. I mean, and everybody gobbled it up. She's a great cook.
Because you know I'm Italian.
Yeah.
And so is Tony.
Oh yeah.
So what's her favorite recipe that she makes?
Well, she's great at the chicken cutlets, but she does a shepherd's pie that's phenomenal, which is a very German dish, you know, and she can cook anything. Is it a German dish? It's an Irish dish. I'm getting the word from Jerry about it. He's going Irish.
I like ravioli and also.
Wait, the shepherd's pie. Hang on, I had it at a German thing, at an Oktoberfest. So it might. Are you sure it's Irish?
They adapted it.
Okay. They adapted it.
Ravioli, manicotti, and eggplant parmesan is my favorite.
Eggplant parmesan. Yeah.
I bet you can do good at that.
My wife can cook anything. Yeah, she's a great cook. She can cook anything. So, but yeah, we've run into a lot of the same celebrities and stuff over the years and stuff. But
I'm trying to get involved with that myself with some modeling. I've done modeling with Push and some other things. UCLA. What do you think about disabled people in the industry for modeling and acting?
I really like that in around the mid-90s, modeling up until about 93, 94 was only for skinny women with long legs and
blonde hair.
Yeah, blonde hair usually, and they were the people on the runway, and that was pretty much the lock. If you didn't look like that, I mean, my agent at the time had a picture on her wall, and it was a picture of a skeleton. And the skeleton is standing there hanging, like you see in those medical things.
Yeah.
And the person is looking at the skeleton and said, oh, she could be a model if she just lost a few pounds.
Oh my gosh.
But around the mid-90s, all of a sudden, people that looked more like people, and airbrushed and ridiculous, I mean, just ridiculous diets to always stay so skinny. Because yeah, the camera adds a few pounds, that's true.
I try to stay on those things. What do you think about like the weight loss shots, like Ozempic or Wegovy or?
I am not a fan of.
Is that bound?
I just feel like there's always a compromise. Like if you turn around and do Ozempic, there's a trade-off. You know, I don't know if you saw the movie Substance. There's always a trade-off. You know, you can't just get young and gorgeous without there being a trade-off. And I think also like people should look like they look. Mm-hmm. You know, I was just talking about on my podcast this week. I was talking about the fact that, you know, Gene Hackman, you know, we lost this past week, was.
I followed that.
He came into popularity at a time when people were tired of looking at Paul Newman and Robert Redford. They said, those guys don't look like me. And then Gene Hackman comes along and he looks like regular people. And all of a sudden he becomes this really unlikely leading man who's also very talented. And they started looking at it like, okay, you know what? That's more the way people look. They don't look like gorgeous Robert Redford and Paul Newman. You know? I mean, Burt Reynolds and stuff, they don't look like that.
I do like Robert Redford.
I do too.
I've seen his movies, you know.
I flew from the West Coast to New York with him. And I got a chance to spend some time with him chatting, and very nice person. Very, very humble, and he's really grateful for his career. But the truth of the matter is the camera loves Robert Redford. I mean, when you meet Robert Redford in person and you see him on camera, the camera just adores him. And when you meet him in person, he looks more normal. He looks more like a regular guy. And I'm thinking, okay, he is talented, and he does have some good ideas, and he's made some great choices in films. But Robert Redford looks very much more normal in person than when you see him on camera. And you know what? People love looking at beauty on camera. But when you say about handicapped people doing modeling and acting and stuff, here's the thing. Around the mid-90s, they started opening the door for people that didn't look like traditional models and stuff. They didn't look like these Susan Anton 6-foot skinny, you know, leggy women. And all of a sudden, it was okay to be a plus-size woman. Mm-hmm. It was okay to be a bigger guy. You know, you look at Jeff Garlin. You know, there's no way Jeff Garlin, back in the day, would have been a lead character on a TV show. And then he's a lead character on Curb Your Enthusiasm and some other shows. I mean, you know, you sit there and say, okay, he looks more like most guys. He looks like most guys that are sitting there having a few beers at the end of a work week. That's the way guys look. And I thought, yeah, this is good that they're opening it up. As far as characters that are handicapped playing, you know, in films and stuff, yeah, I like watching when somebody who is handicapped, talented, playing someone who is a handicapped person.
Well,
why would we bring somebody in who's not handicapped to pretend they're handicapped?
Like Stephen Hawking or like Michael J. Fox, right?
Right.
Michael J. Fox is one of my people with a disability that inspire
Such a hero. Such a hero.
And I know that he's done stem cell work, and
right.
He's really tried to help in that area.
And with AI, they are so close to curing several diseases. Diabetes, type 1 diabetes, looks like it'll be a thing of the past pretty soon. Cancer looks like, because AI is getting ahead of the research because it's learning from its learning. So as much as people are afraid of AI, and you know, I've talked to lots of people that are concerned about the fact that I look like this, but AI could produce this look, and I might be out of work. And I'm like,
no, you look great.
Oh,
you're very fit, and Jaron too. I really admire Jaron for it. He does the vegan diet, and you know that may be better to follow that than do all the shots, because I think a vegan lifestyle is great too, and all the vegetables.
Yeah,
and
if
stuff
you nourish the cells,
Or
you
model.
know, yeah, that's exactly.
modeling. And
She's there.
yeah,
Yeah, she'll be like, okay, I'll get back to you in a few hours. Like she's gonna be in the gym for a few hours. Like she's a workout nut. You know?
yeah, she's gotta be my gym buddy.
Yeah, Cammy is the person to hang out with if you want to stay fit.
She's gonna transfer me into the disabled Barbie. You know, they made a Barbie in the wheelchair.
Right.
Like how, yeah, it was kind of like my mom's idea too, but since it was the disabled Barbie, it was kind of like Mattel's thing. But anyway, I just thought it was cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
It's showing kids the different disabilities nowadays,
Right.
and
Right.
I'm so glad to like have people like you to interview and just to look up
Thank
to
you.
and things like that.
Yeah, thank you. Because for so long, the image of Barbie, like if you actually translated that into a human being, it was like a ridiculous, out of proportion person with a 19-inch waist and like a 48-inch chest. It was just ridiculous. Like the dimensions of Barbie was absurd. And then they started coming out with like Nurse Barbie
Yeah.
and Motorcycle Barbie. And I don't know why it took so long to come up with African American Barbie. Like why did that take
Or
so long?
pregnant Barbie.
Pregnant Barbie, like real things that people that are teenagers and in their 20s that would sit there and say, hey, I can relate to that Barbie. Not everybody can relate to Barbie with the Corvette and the beach house in Malibu.
Well, you know, Jared has his Tesla, so he looks like that kind of a Barbie guy himself.
Jared doesn't like being on the freeway and having people going, hey, I need you to represent me, hey.
Yeah.
Maybe you can bounce Jack.
Yeah.
But Jared and I have had a great time. I mean, I remember when, like, I thought for the longest time that he and I had worked together on his very first gig. I think, and that turned out to be pretty much in my mind because I met him soon after he got into town. But I did recognize there was something outstanding about Jared.
Yeah.
Something special.
And you know, my dad is a huge fan of you, and I know that you've done a lot of work in the cop movies. And can you tell?
You just were on my set for
Yeah.
Strange Anomalies,
Yeah.
which we're just finishing up in the next couple of weeks. The pilot will be done, and you were on the set.
Yeah. So, talk about your movies that you've done, because my dad's a huge fan, and he watches you. Have you been on Law and Order? Or what?
You can tell your dad it has not been a very easy road for me because I was just telling somebody that I'm doing another film with, and I told Lana that she had heard a story about a guy who had slept in his truck for 8 months, determined to get into the Screen Actors Guild. And I wrote back, that was me. And she was like, oh, I said, that was me. What I would do is, and you can tell your dad, is I used to go up Sunday night, 9 o'clock, in my Toyota pickup truck with a shell. And I had a sleeping bag, a wind-up alarm clock, and a broomstick going across the top of the shell. And I would hang my clothes, go up, sleep on the streets of LA, go to the gym at 4 o'clock in the morning, work out, shower up, and then I would stand outside the studio gates, hoping someone who looked similar to me couldn't make it to work. And most days it didn't work, but then sometimes they'd be like, hey, we got a rush call, come on, you're here. And they would bring me in, and I was like, I gotta get some work. And I would sleep in my truck all week long until I wrapped on Friday, and then deal with the traffic to come back, do my laundry, and go back up on Sunday. And my determination, this is actually, most people didn't realize, because back then, in order to get in the union, you had to have a speaking part in a union film. And in order to have a speaking part in a union film, you had to be in the union. So it was a catch-22.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't get in. It was pretty much locked out. Unless you were on set as an extra and they felt like there would be a need for you to speak.
Yeah.
And then if that happened, they would what they call Taft-Hartley you. You'd get tafted. And that meant that you are doing union work on a union show, and you are, now the door is open, you're welcome to join the union. So my determination on the set of Out for Justice, and when it came time to film the scene, he actually threw me backwards down a flight of stairs at a soundstage. And the soundstage stairs are like 30 steps. And I just kept rolling down the stairs like I couldn't believe he did that. Well, I got lucky because if I had caught my head in the railings, I probably would have broken my neck. Right. But I mean, I couldn't believe that he did that. But I'd been making fun of his acting for like 3 days, and he had just had enough. And he finally got ready to do the scene, and he just slammed me into the railing, and I went head over heels backwards, and I rolled down the stairs. But I got stunt pay, I got a credit, and I got invited to join the union because now I have a speaking part in an action in a union film. And that opened the door. But I didn't know who Steven Seagal was in 1989 or whatever. I just wasn't impressed with his acting. And he was not in the mood for somebody like me to be making fun of him. So he was like ready to slam me. But along the way, I started trying to figure out my path, like how I wanted my career to go. And there was a producer that did a show called Hill Street Blues. And when Hill Street Blues got done, that was just when I got invited to join the union. And I heard that he has another show, and I thought, oh, I'd like to get on that show, and I got on. Problem is, it turned out to be what is considered the worst show ever on American television, a show called Cop Rock. Oh, no. It was terrible. And I was on the show with Dennis France, and our trailers were right up against each other, and we got canceled like 5 episodes in. And I'm sitting there like, what did I do? And Dennis turns around and he says, he's got another show. And I looked at him and I said, you're kidding. He said, no, it's a cop show. It's going to take place in New York. I say we go. And I said, Dennis, this is a disaster. He goes, it's okay. And I said, I'm not going to do it. And he said, no, we'll do it. We'll do the show. I said, no, I'm not going to do it. It turned out to be NYPD Blue.
Wow. I would love to go to New York because I went with my mom when I was younger.
Oh, go now.
I want to go.
It's all cleaned up.
Yeah.
It's all cleaned up. It's really nice. It's Times Square and Little Italy, and you go down by Battery Park and stuff. It's fantastic. Go take a walk on Mulberry Street, and just the Italian food is genuine. Everything going on there is very Martin Scorsese, it's very, it's a very kind of gritty bite to it. But you like it, go to New York.
Maybe
get Billy to take you to New York.
Maybe Billy and I will come along with you sometime.
I'll be the tour guide. We'll go wander around Central Park. We'll go in the subway and chat with people and stuff. And that's the other thing is like if you're on the subway in New York and somebody, like people have said, hey, I've seen you, I know I've seen you. But they don't make a big deal about it. It's not like LA and stuff where they go, oh my gosh, I've seen you on a TV show. In New York, they're kind of like, they'll be like, hey, they'll just acknowledge. Rick Moranis and I worked together, and Rick said that he takes the subway.
On the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
No, we did My Blue Heaven. But he said that when he works in New York, he said he just takes the subway. And people will be sitting there and they'll look up and they'll recognize him and they'll just be like, that's the end of it. It's not, oh, can I have your picture, can I have your autograph? It's none of that. New Yorkers are kind of, they're not like it is in LA, but you should go to New York. You would have a great time in New York. Yeah. And the pizza.
And
the pizza.
I want to go there for a fashion show.
Yeah. It's like next to Paris. It's like Mecca for fashion shows. Yeah, so go to a fashion show. Yeah. Enjoy yourself there.
Yeah, so talk about what modeling have you done too?
Well, I've done ramp modeling, and I've done modeling for Sears when they were in business. Yeah. And I did a series of costume, like for Halloween. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is, like I did this gorilla thing, I did this Peter Pan thing, I did these other things, and I was really surprised that when I went home that year, I went home for the holidays at Christmas, and people in Sears had remembered seeing me on the package cover for the costume, print work and that kind of thing. And because sometimes they're just, like especially in the 90s, they were looking for somebody who was like really fit, who just like was tall, and they can shoot and makes you look like, you're like 6 and a half
You're
feet tall.
fit. You're really fit.
Thank you. Yeah, I work at it all the time.
Yeah.
I get my mail delivered at the gym. I haven't run into Jaron there, but he's dieting. I'll get him in the gym, and then the next time you see him, he won't be able to lift his arm.
I think he has a personal trainer, Marcy, right?
I'm sure he does. He's a producer. He drives a Tesla. He lives a life. Every now and then, I don't know where he is, and then he's like, "Oh, I'm in Holland." He's like, "I'm in Holland," And he'd be like, "Oh yeah, what was we did? It was really funny. We did a Zoom table reading for a script for something we were doing, and everybody was on their Zoom, and I'm looking at Jaron, and I'm trying to look behind him, and I said, "Where are you?" And he was in like some exotic Mexican resort while everybody else was locally on Zoom. He's in this exotic. I said, "Where are you? That's like the Mexican Riviera. What are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, I'll be back in time for shooting." That's just Jaron's life, man. He's enjoying it. And I'm very close. I love his mom.
Yeah.
His mom, oh my gosh. I'm so grateful that I always say, "I'm so glad you produced them," and she's like, "Had some help." It wasn't just me. But his mom's a character, and she was on the TV show Promised Land. She was on set when we were shooting Promised Land.
Mm-hmm. Me and Billy were at Jaron's bowling night. We helped him, and we missed you there.
Jaron wrangled me into joining his bowling team. He says, "Hey, can you bowl still?" I said, "Yeah, I'm a good bowler." And I show up, and next thing I know, it's like a 3-month commitment. I'm like, "Oh wow, I thought I was showing up tonight."
We found out that there's actually a thing that I can bowl with that's round.
Yeah, you put it down off right in front of the wheelchair.
Yeah.
And I have never seen anyone ever throw a bowling ball harder than Jaron. He throws the ball at like 20 miles an hour down the lane. Everyone else throws the ball at like 11 or 9 miles. He throws it like 20 miles an hour down the lane. It's as fast as you can possibly. If he could throw a baseball like that, he could be a pitcher.
Yeah, he got Billy, my fiance, into the bowling too, because Billy's a really good bowler, and I don't think he'll mind me saying that, but he had a lot of fun.
Billy's a good bowler, and he's your fiance. As soon as he finds the ring, the wedding's back on. poor Billy lost the ring. Oh my God.
If you ever find it, then I'll go find Austin, right?
No, we're not getting rid of Billy. You get rid of Billy, I'm taking him. Billy's a keeper.
I guess I'll have to hire Tony.
Listen to her.
He said that Billy is my Tony, like me, and I'm like Angela, and Billy is like my Tony.
You're Tony Maselli.
Yeah.
Hey yo. So
a real life
who's the boss? Yeah. So Jaron, I had explained to Jaron why I had turned down a recurring role on Seinfeld, and I had just done the Seinfeld podcast explaining, because apparently I wasn't alone.
Yeah.
They're interviewing all the people that turned down working on Seinfeld as a recurring character, and so I have been explaining myself as to why, because I am on all the episodes of Seinfeld where he does his stand-up, and I'm this close to Jerry. I'm right in front of him, and they turn the camera around, camera's on me, and it's just when he's doing his stand-up, because they wanted to hire New Yorkers, because New Yorkers get his sense of humor. And I lived in Long Island about 10 minutes from Jerry.
Yeah.
Like he lived in Massapequa, I was in West Islip, like we're right next to each other. but we never met out there. But I get the sense of humor. And the first crowd they had brought in were from LA, and they didn't get the punchlines. So where he can't even lift his arms, like it's just like he's so exhausted. And I didn't want to work on the show because I didn't get the dynamic of the show. I didn't understand how the guy across the hall made a living. How did he pay his rent? And I didn't understand how Jerry and George were friends when George lives in Queens at his parents' house and Jerry's on the Tonight Show. And when I was on the set, Rosie O'Donnell was in position to play Elaine because Julia was still on Saturday Night Live and she couldn't get out of a contract. So NBC had to work out a deal to get Julia out of a contract. But Rosie O'Donnell was going to play the girlfriend. And I'm thinking he would never date her. I mean, she doesn't even seem like she likes guys. I didn't know she was gay at the time, but I said, she doesn't even seem like she likes guys. Like, I don't get, like, why would he date her? And although Rosie's very funny, I didn't get the whole dynamic of the show. And I had gotten offered to do another show with Dom DeLuise's son called Pigsty.
I met Dom DeLuise also.
Oh, me too. Yeah, I met Dom DeLuise. He came to the first airing of Pigsty, and then we got canceled. But I left the Seinfeld set to go work on what I was hoping to be my own show, and now people say, why would you have turned down? I'll tell you something. Do you watch Seinfeld?
Yes, I have watched a few episodes.
My Uncle Tony played the barber who cuts Jerry's hair.
Yeah.
And then Jerry goes to his nephew to get his hair cut, right?
Wow.
That was my Uncle Tony, who's playing the barber. Tony Ponzini played the barber on Seinfeld. And I had just left, and when they brought him in to play the barber, and it's a very memorable, iconic episode. And I thought, what's the odds of that? That Uncle Tony would be the guy playing the barber on Seinfeld.
That's funny. I have an Uncle Tony, and he's following my podcast.
Ah!
So hopefully he sees this, and he's a great guy.
He's a great guy, huh?
He's in advertising.
He's in advertising?
Yeah.
Not for Seinfeld.
No. Casino and Associates.
Oh.
Or direct marketing, yeah.
Okay, so he does mass marketing.
Mass
kind of
marketing.
thing. Yeah. So I'll share with you one of my last things that toward the late 90s, I did a movie for HBO.
Mm-hmm.
And like 6 months later, I still hadn't been paid.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, so I contact the union. I'm like, what's going on? Like, where's my money? And HBO is holding back on my money. And I'm like, just pay me. They're like, this isn't a big deal. Just give me my money, And now late fees are starting to accumulate. And I'm like, just pay me. Like, I don't know why I got to fight for my money. I earned my money. Why should it take this long? Mm-hmm. Well, I end up doing a pilot with James Gandolfini. And Jimmy and I did this show called Gun, which was, the whole show follows the path of a gun as it changes hands and how it affects people. It's a very interesting concept to a show. Well, we get canceled. And right after we got canceled, I was talking to Jimmy. He had a convertible Mustang, and I'm kind of leaning on his car. I'm like, what are we gonna do now? And Jimmy says, hey, I'll tell you what, HBO is doing this cops and robbers thing. I'm thinking maybe we go over there, using a lot of Italians. And I looked at him and I said, I just went through hell trying to get paid from HBO. I'm not working for HBO anymore, that's it. Mm-hmm. And he goes, I don't have nothing else going on. I'm gonna go over there, I'm gonna read for a part. Turned out to be The Sopranos.
Wow. Tony wrote Sopranos too.
But I have in my living room an autographed picture from Jimmy, and he signed it, Tony Soprano, as a joke, because 5 years into the show, he finally had a holdout, and he didn't show up for work because they weren't paying him. And I'm like, I told you. And so he decided he wasn't, and they were like, okay, fine, we'll kill off your character. And he was like, good luck killing off Tony Soprano on The Sopranos. That doesn't work like that. And so they they finally paid him, but they owed him like $25 million in back pay. And they said, I told you, they don't pay. I don't know what the deal is, but what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
But you must have a lot of amazing stories.
Yeah, that's just the tip of the iceberg of crazy stories.
We'll have to do a continuation interview.
We'll do like a part 2.
Yeah, exactly.
We get Billy to like set it all up again, and Jared put all his stuff together. We'll do it up.
What do you think about promotional modeling? I love that too. Have you done any?
I've done that. I've done promotional modeling.
I did something for Push.
Well, I've done it for people I'm not attached to anymore. So
Yeah.
the companies I can't mention the companies, but once you sever that relationship, it's kind of a weird thing because now they worry that you're going to work for their competition. So you become kind of a little bit of the enemy because they don't want you doing for them what you did for the company you worked for.
Yeah.
So they kind of become standoffish.
Mm-hmm.
But I like.
Well, I do like Push. So.
Yeah. No, you're still loyal.
I'm still loyal. If they want to keep more work, I'm all about it.
Tell them to call. Let's go. Do it again.
Because, Push would just be perfect because they have to push me down the runway.
I work for Push and I get pushed.
Exactly. I work for Push and I get pushed.
That would be a funny advertising gimmick. That would be good, yeah.
Or who wants to push her down the runway?
It's a push. The push is on. That's it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Jack, for helping me, and hopefully we'll get to do more work together.
Well, we'll do this again. We'll do it again.
Yeah.
I promise. Okay.
Okay.
All right. And you're gonna work on my cop show.
Yes.
All right.
And
Because
then,
we got other episodes coming.
and then when I make Italian cookies at Christmas, Karen is on my list.
Karen's on the list.
Yeah, for the Italian cookies, and then we'll have you over for Italian food one night.
Okay. Well, you go say hello to Karen, and then we'll send this to her. Okay.
Hi,
She's out
Karen.
in New York right now.
Thank you for following me. Thanks for being a good, loyal supporter, and having Jack here today was.
And keeping me from making any more bad decisions.
And letting us borrow Jack for an hour.
All right. Thanks for having me here, Kimberly. I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you, Jen, for producing this wacky show or podcast.
Went off the rails for a little bit. Yeah. You can always count on Jaren. All right, guys. I'll see you later.
Bye-bye.